All right, class. So thanks for joining us for chapter 3, The Molecules of Life. This is a very lengthy chapter as well. And what we're going to do is I'm going to just briefly talk about the basic molecules of life that you would find in general biology and in the human body. So I'm going to pass over some of this and just focus on some key points. Organic compounds are carbon-based molecules. Organic compounds make up most of living organisms. Carbon is a very versatile molecule because carbon can share electrons with any other atom. So the carbon atoms of organic compounds can also bond with other elements, most commonly hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. And here we see kind of variations in the carbon skeleton, whether it looks branched or unbranched, double bonds, single bonds, and take a look at all of these animations that I include in these PowerPoints as well. One of the simplest organic compounds is methane, and larger organic compounds are the main molecules in gasoline and also are important fuels in your bodies. So this is methane, a simple organic compound made of one carbon and four hydrogen atoms. All right, I'm going to kind of skip ahead now and talk about many of life's molecules are these gigantic macromolecules. And we'll go over the three main categories of macromolecules: carbohydrates, proteins, and nucleic acids. And that's kind of what I want you to focus on from this chapter. And those are what I would ask you questions on. Macromonomers are polymers, which are large molecules made up of stringing together many smaller molecules called monomers. A dehydration reaction links these two monomers together and removes a molecule of water, whereas a breakdown of polymers occurs by hydrolysis. So we have kind of the building of a polymer chain and water is released. That's called dehydration. And when we break a polymer chain, we add in water. Hydrolysis will break a bond. All right, so these four categories: carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids. That's what we're going to get through in this chapter. Carbohydrates include sugars and polymers of sugar. In animals, carbohydrates are very important for being their primary source of dietary energy and a raw material for manufacturing other kinds of organic compounds. Whereas in plants, carbohydrates serve as a building material for much of the plant body. Monosaccharides are the monomers of carbohydrates. They are simple sugars, and you cannot break a monosaccharide down into anything smaller. So here's a look at simple sugars: glucose and fructose. Monosaccharides, particularly glucose, are the main fuels in cellular work, and in water, many of these monosaccharides form rings. Disaccharide is constructed from two monosaccharides. We have an example like lactose, maltose, and sucrose. High fructose corn syrup is made by a commercial process that converts natural glucose in corn syrup to much sweeter fructose. Polysaccharides are complex carbohydrates and are made of long chains of sugars. These are polymers of monosaccharides. Starch is a familiar example of a polysaccharide, and it consists of long strings of glucose monomers and is used by plant cells to store energy. So here we have three common polysaccharides: starch, glycogen, and cellulose. We have glycogen. It's used by animal cells to store energy and is broken down to release glucose when you need it. And cellulose is the most abundant organic compound on Earth. It forms cable-like fibrils in the tough walls that enclose plants, and it cannot be broken by any enzyme produced by animals. All right, moving on to lipids then. Almost all carbohydrates are hydrophilic, meaning they love water. These are molecules that can dissolve readily in water. However, lipids are hydrophobic, meaning they are unable to mix with water. Lipids also differ from carbohydrates, proteins, and nucleic acids in that neither are they huge macromolecules, nor are they necessarily polymers built from repeating monomers. Lipids are a very diverse group of molecules made from different molecular building blocks. And we can see here how oil is hydrophobic, does not mix with the hydrophilic vinegar components in a salad dressing. Then we have a typical fat, or a triglyceride, consists of a glycerol molecule joined with three fatty acid molecules via a dehydration reaction. Fats perform essential functions in the body like energy storage, cushioning, and insulation. If the carbon skeleton of a fatty acid has fewer than the maximum number of hydrogens, it is unsaturated. And if it has the maximum number of hydrogens, it's saturated. And the saturated fat has all three of its fatty acids saturated. So here we see corn oil, palm oil, and butter, the percentage of poly, mono, and saturated fat. Most animal fats have a high proportion of saturated fatty acids and can easily stack, tending to be solid at room temperature. This was what contributes to atherosclerosis, which is a buildup of plaque and blockages in your arteries. However, most plant and fish fats tend to be high in unsaturated fatty acids and are liquid at room temperature. So it's really healthy to get your fats that you eat from plants and fish versus animals. All right. So we have saturated fats and unsaturated fats. We see trans fats and omega-3 fats. Steroids then are very different from fats in structure and function because the carbon skeleton has 4 fused rings. Steroids can vary in the functional groups attached to this set of rings, and these chemical variations affect their function. And cholesterol is a key component of cell membranes and the base steroid from which your body produces other steroids like estrogen and testosterone. And this is what steroids look like, kind of these 4 rings. And you can see how testosterone and estrogen are derived from cholesterol. Synthetic anabolic steroids are variants of testosterone, mimic side effects, can be prescribed to treat diseases like cancer and AIDS, but it can also be abused by athletes to build up muscles quickly, so they can cause serious physical and mental problems. Proteins, then, these are polymers of amino acid monomers. They account for more than 50% of the dry weight of most cells and are instrumental in almost everything cells do. Here are major type of proteins. Structural proteins provide support, hair, ligaments, horns. Storage proteins provide amino acids for growth, contractile proteins in your muscles, transport proteins in plants, and then enzymes, which help speed up chemical reactions. All proteins are made by stringing together a common set of 20 kinds of amino acids, and every amino acid consists of a central carbon atom bonded to 4 covalent partners, and 3 of those attachment groups are common to all amino acids. So this is a look at an amino acid, and the side chain will vary based on which amino acid it is. This is an example of leucine and serine. All right. I think protein shapes determine their protein function. We can see protein shapes can stack on top of each other, fold over on each other, and then create a 3D model of proteins. All right, and then I think we're going to talk about nucleic acids and then be done with this section. Nucleic acids are macromolecules that store information, provide the instructions for building proteins. They consist of 2 types, deoxyribonucleic acid and ribonucleic acid. These nucleic acids contain all the genetic material, and a gene is a unit of inheritance encoded in a specific stretch of DNA that programs the amino acid sequence of a polypeptide. So here's a gene in the DNA. It gets transcribed into RNA, which gets translated into a protein. Nucleic acids are polymers made from monomers called nucleotides, and these are the 3 main parts of a nucleotide, as shown here. Here's a DNA nucleotide. These are the main nitrogenous bases, adenine, guanine, thymine, or cytosine. And those are the nitrogenous bases that make up DNA. And I think that's all we'll cover for this chapter. Let me just double check everything here as I keep sharing my screen. I think we'll pause there and then we will move on to chapter 4. Thank you for listening, guys.